Hello, and welcome to War with a Mate. It's me, it's James.
Hey, Andy.
Yeah, we're here. We're here for a big one, for a special one.
Yeah, we're entering the war room.
We are in the war room. And you know what makes it the war room, Andy?
No.
It's these brand new mics, the mic arms that we've got, the mic stands.
Yeah.
They are affixed to a table, they're suspended in the air. And so we got some suspenders for ourselves. We're dangling from the air in BDSM style equipment.
But just because it's more comfortable, it's not sexual.
Yeah, it's not sexual. It's it gives a gratification, which some might misconstrue as sexual. I would just say it's platonic fun.
Yeah, it's just a fun way of being in the air.
Yeah, it's difficult to get up here if you're not in a plane or winged or some sort of wizard. And since I don't have access to wings or wizards, or I have access to a plane.
Do you?
Yeah. All you have to do
Kept that quiet.
Yeah, you just have to pay them money and they'll let you get on.
What?
Yeah, that's how it works. You just give them a little bit of cash and go, I would like to go to this destination, please. And they go, oh, go on then. Since it's you,
Sounds like a scam.
since it's such a lovely boy, you can get on. So, what are we doing here, Andy?
We're doing a recap sort of analysis of what we've done so far. It's been, we've halfway through Upstage 2. We've now done or had a chance to do everything in the sequence of play. We've not done some stuff like patrols, but I think there's enough to sort of take a step back. Haven't played this time and just talk about, what we've experienced so far.
Yeah.
Thoughts, I guess, bit of a review almost.
It's been 100 days since we officially started playing the game. We did a lot of stuff beforehand that we called playing the game. It wasn't really. But 100 days ago, we definitively started playing by starting the different parts of Upstage 1, of Turn 1.
Yes.
So that's really what this is. It's a chance to look back this far along. So bit of a different structure today. It won't be the usual segmented aspect. Instead, it's going to be a very thorough look back at what we've done so far and also what this means going forward. So I suppose you've already said we're part way through the second upstage of Turn 1. We're essentially smack bang in the middle of Turn 1.
Yes.
And it's taken, as you may remember, 100 days to get this far, which doesn't put us on a great course. It puts us on a prediction of about 45, 47 years to finish. We're going to have to trim it down, but we have some real wins in our back pocket here. We've made some real changes, real strides, which I think mean that we've got positive outlooks for the future.
Yeah. I like to think of it as we've front-loaded some of the effort rather than being very slow.
Yes, and you know what?
Because if I don't, I'll go mad.
No, it's not only rational for your own sane mind, it's also correct. Because we started off looking at the game, wondering how to tackle it. We tackled that logistical challenge first before we started tackling the logistics in the game itself. So I think, maybe we should first of all go over our general impressions for the game so far.
Should I go first?
Go for it.
So, initially daunting, causing a sort of persistent anxiety that went over our heads.
Yep.
But it has opened up a bit, feels more accessible. It's no less crunchy.
No.
And it's still just exhausting at times.
Every play session, I'm drained.
Yeah. But feels completable, which it didn't at times at the very start.
No, before we started officially playing, it definitely didn't feel like a task that we were cut out for.
Yeah. It's initial frustration with the rules, which we've documented well.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting to grips with them now. It's clear that there's multiple games sort of smashed together. And also, like, the air game feels like it might be just another thing.
It feels like it could have been ripped from another game. It could be its own game in its own right.
Yeah.
And it's been tacked on. Not tacked on. That's a bit of a disservice. It's been added on, bolted on, and it does synergize with the land game and the logistics game, but it does feel like it could be its own independent game.
Yeah. And then obviously there's the ghost of stuff they were working on and didn't finish. The camels are famous on this podcast, but there's no reason to mention that dead camels can be transported by air. There's no rules about what you can do with them.
It's left to the imagination.
Feels like there was some sort of camel system that got cut, things like that. So yeah, but despite the confusion, one, the rules are fun to read. I think there's a lot of personality in there.
It's quite conversational. It feels, the way I see it, it almost feels like a bit of an eccentric lecturer who's going over a topic. And it feels borderline condescending at times. Sort of like a guy who's a little bit sick of his career and he's just giving you the knowledge and he's like, you know what, this is kind of a waste of your time and this is exhausting.
Trying to like subtly talk you out of doing your PhD on something nuts.
Yeah, it's like, I'm tenured. I'm going to keep this job because it's the job I'm in. But if you really want to waste your time doing this, that's on you, buddy.
But overall, general impression of once we've got some of the tedious stuff out of the way, like the bookkeeping, where there's no like decisions or anything, it's just like remove 6% from everything you have. Once that kind of stuff's been streamlined a bit, I think, there is a fun game in there, and I'm enjoying playing it. I don't think I would have kept going if we didn't have the podcast. There were several times I definitely would have quit. But I am glad we got the accountability tool, because I'm glad we're playing it.
You know what, so am I. And I definitely echo that, as well as a lot of your other thoughts there, that if it wasn't for the fact that we have another sort of another angle with this, that we get the feedback on it, we get to hear other people's opinions on it, and it doesn't feel like it's just us playing it, because that would feel so just suffocating. And the amount of times I would have quit in the first few months, I think it was mostly my idea to push this in the first place. Yeah. And I was, I think, definitely the one more willing to quit at the very start.
Yes.
Because I was so infuriated. And at first I was like, oh, this is whimsical and funny. But then I was like, yeah, but I actually need to play this fucking thing.
Yeah,
so,
it's a fun concept, but then when you're the one doing it, it's like a fail video on YouTube. Like, you don't want to be the one getting smacked in the nuts.
And that's what I was getting. I was getting smacked in the nuts. And I was incredibly frustrated with the complexity of it, the bad rule clarity, really felt like biting off more than we could chew. And then after understanding the game more, mitigating setup time, there is a fun game in there, and there's dynamic elements. Personal favorites for me, barrage and recently air missions. So the admin, it's become manageable, and now it feels like that's almost the hard work you have to put in, so that you can have a bit of playtime at the end of the day.
Yes.
Which, we're playing this game knowing what it is. I think it's only fair that for us to get to the fun parts, we have to trudge through some of the shit.
Yeah, it is that sort of fun that you have to earn. Sort of like the Dark Souls type thing of like, you're going to fail a lot and keep bashing your head against the wall, but it's rewarding when you get there.
It is, and I've got aspects of the game that I'm quite engaged in. The fact that I have air superiority as the Axis player, I get what feels like the beefier units, certainly around the border conflict at the start of the game. So I feel like I've got this like sort of advantage almost to make use of. So having that to play around with a little bit, it makes all of the bookkeeping feel a little bit less stingy when I'm looking at it going, well, I've got more maybe to keep track of, but that's a good thing. That means I've got more toys to play with in the sandbox. So that's been fun, and it's playing the game itself was to sate a sort of weird. It's an obsession I've got, I think, with really overly convoluted tasks. And I'm not going to be landing on Mars anytime soon. I'm not going to be climbing Everest. So playing a long board game feels like a very manageable middle ground, even though it is a fucking ridiculous board game, but an impressive one. Yeah, a very impressive one. Richard Berg outdid himself when he made this. He broke the mold. And like you say, there's the remnants of all these other things that he's clearly taken inspiration from, these ridiculous board games of the time, these big monster games, made the monster of all monsters. And it's a marvel. It's just genuinely, I don't know, it's mind-boggling that this guy, I mean, there's other people involved with aspects of it, but this guy really spearheaded this game. The only sort of regret I have is that when I finished work for the day, I get a message from a friend being like, oh, do you want to come to the pub? And I'm like, I can't. I've got to play the campaign for North Africa. I've got to go play this stupid game, especially when they say that. And it's, recent weather. It's just been blistering sunshine. Sun's out. Oh, I see people going off to enjoy themselves while I'm on the walk to yours. I'm thinking I could be doing that. But instead, I'm sat indoors playing this. And when it's an admin session as well, God. The only saving grace is the last few weeks it's been fun aircraft stuff.
Yeah.
So I've not felt as bitter, but there's bitterness. There's bitterness.
Of course, yeah.
Overall, I think it's been more fun now than I thought it would be at the start by a long shot.
Yeah, I was sort of expecting it would be the thing of us getting through it, but not actually having fun for a lot of it.
And that may well come. We're so early that the majority of the time is not something measurable at all. This is a drop in the ocean. So hopefully it doesn't turn into, pissing into an ocean of piss. And instead it's actually an ebb and flow of good and bad.
Here's hoping. But yeah.
So I suppose with that ticked off for broad thoughts, why don't we get into the experience of playing that we've had so far?
Yeah, do you want to sort of break it down at a high level, sort of logistics, land, combat, and then the air stuff?
Yeah, good way to do it.
Logistics, I guess we start with that because that is the game.
It's the backbone. It's the everything. It's the bedrock.
Well, yeah, it sort of informs every other decision you might make, whether how much ammo you use in a fight, because you might not get them resupplied in time, if they even have the ammo, if it's worth doing the fight, because if they win, are they going to have enough fuel to, take an objective? That, it runs through every decision you make in the game.
Yeah, everything is backed up by that, and that decision is always looming, because you'll always be thinking, if I'm going to use this, do I have the supply lines to back this decision? I can do it in the moment, but is this going to kill me next turn?
Yeah. It's felt more... I think you've maybe had a harder time with it than me, just because... Well, I have unlimited supplies at my main cities, and all my units are currently basically in a line, so stuff can move along that north coast.
Yeah, you've got a streamlined road to make use of. It's perfect.
Partially because I should have guys down in Siwa.
Yeah, that's a big point of contention.
Would add a big element to my supply line stuff. But yeah, I've found it not too bad, to be honest. I think the bombing of the roads and using resources in the airstrips and stuff is going to sort of spike the complexity of that very soon.
Yes. Well, I recently got a bomb off on part of that northern road.
Yeah.
Which, yes, it's just the one hex, so you can, in theory, skip over that hex and continue your movement. But it just builds up that little bit of traction to slow down your supply lines.
And adds breakdown chances. And
yeah, you can have all sorts of things that become, complexities on the back of that.
How are you finding it from the Axis specific, I guess?
So I think it probably is quite a bit different, solely because I've got the shipments, which are the sort of the
naval convoy stuff.
Yeah, having to have everything move over through shipments, and especially in the scenario, you've got very limited shipping lanes. You've only got 3 to pick from, and of those 3, they're quite limited in supplies when it comes to get them to the front line. The biggest port that I have is Tripoli, which means that I've got to move stuff from an off-map location to the prime map areas, which means getting them from an abstracted area to the westernmost point of the game map, and then getting them from there to what is the front line on map C.
Yeah.
So getting those resources there is a bit challenging, and I'm still a little bit confused. I'm still figuring out Tripoli. I don't really understand how it works still, because I don't understand what supply cadence I should be following.
Yeah, so it's not a rule issue, it's a...
Yeah.
How do I,
I'm not sure how frequently I should be moving things, if it should be a steady stream constantly, or if I should be having waves of trucks going every few op stages. And I don't think I'll know realistically for another turn or two, like full turn, before it sort of manifests, because I don't know how it's going to impact my supplies, because it feels like in some areas I've got a shit ton of supplies. But I know for a fact that's going to dwindle so quick. Stuff like ammunition, it does not feel like I've got enough ammunition. And I don't know if I've just distributed things badly at the start, or if it's intentionally sparse. I know it is to an extent, but I don't know if it's meant to feel this suffocating. So I'm going to have to review that in a few turns, really assess whether or not I've went ham with stuff like shipping of water, which I think I have, because so many villages and burrs are in my control. I can probably make more use of that than I am. So that the shipping itself as well, you've got stuff like, you've never successfully located my shipping lanes
No,
yet.
because that's on the strategic, so I get one chance per turn to do that.
Yes.
And I missed out on this one because of my dice rolls.
Yeah. So I've not had to worry about that, but I know there's stuff like the tonnage affects the defense capability of these ships. So I'm going to have to think, do I play around with that? I think the first time you identify my ships and I have a look at how much resource I lose from that, and then also how much I'm actually shipping from Tripoli, will really be an indicator for how it works. Stuff like trucks, like you say, that's so important, and it's stuff like breakdown hasn't hit us massively yet, but it's only op stage 1 that we fully completed.
I mean, op stage 1, I lost 50% of the trucks in one of my convoys.
Yeah, that's
which
it.
is a huge hit.
And you have bigger convoys than me as well, actually.
The way I've got it set out, it's big. It's 4 big convoys, where you seem to have gone with more.
I've got like 16.
Sort of more reasonably sized ones.
Well, that's it. You say reasonably. Maybe it's unreasonable because maybe I think I've hamstrung myself in some areas.
Yeah.
Where looking at it, I just don't know that I've got the right amount of trucks. So I'm safer from breakdowns en masse. But all in all, you might, because then you have the benefit of if you then send people out to recover those trucks.
I only have one place,
and it feels more worthwhile.
Yeah.
If I'm risking, resource, leg and limb to go and
get 2 free
get
trucks.
2-3 trucks, is that really worth it? And then I'll have to start weighing that up, because if I start to run out of trucks, I'm gonna have to go and cherry pick these ones in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
Which is going to be so
is
difficult.
Is it worth it? Yes, no. Sort of filters over time. It's not a fixed answer.
Yeah.
Sort of dependent on like how many trucks you get through replacement points and arriving through the schedule. Does that keep up and that sort of thing?
Well, you make a very good point there with the schedule of reinforcements. Not something we've encountered yet. That's something we'll have to really think about, because then it's more groups showing up that we need to reinforce with resources, get them amalgamated as part of the supply lines, and also just how that's going to affect us. And I guess it's getting more into land combat maybe, but how that affects us. But I think, the attrition rates of the trucks, it's not terrifying moment to moment, but I think in a few weeks' time that could build up to some really scary numbers, which could absolutely undercut everything we've done so far.
It's got that potential to really grind the game to a halt almost. Because if both of us have messed it up...
if both of us have, I don't feel too bad.
At that point, feel too bad, but the game does sort of become a...
it becomes a slow burn.
Empty pistols at each other, being like, someone give me ammo.
I mean, that is still what I feel like a little bit, except instead of empty pistols, it's just empty water canteens. And then they go, but James, you've got about the fact you're in a village, you can just draw water from the well. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. We did have an email, which we'll not do a sort of mail segment today, I don't think, but we did have an email that highlighted once again that we've made another mishap with water. I forgot that villagers have water. We'll get into that next time, but just stuff like that where we've missed really important logistical information. Stuff like guns can have ammo capacity of their own. Vehicles have fuel tanks.
Yeah.
Stuff like that really threw off the ratio of supplies that we had at the start of the game, which I think maybe it won't have a massive detriment, but it feels like there's a chance it does.
Yeah,
feels like we might have overshot. Stuff like fuel might have went too hard on fuel. But all in all, I think logistics is going all right. You think overall you've got yourself away from danger, or do you think you're still in the grey?
I don't at the minute have anyone who's like a turn away. Like, no one's on attrition at the minute.
Yeah.
And my frontline guys have ammo. Just guess that's the thing, keeping that up.
Well, that's it. We need to make sure that we keep on top of the logistics, because then we won't get to do fun stuff like land combat, which I suppose if we're breaking it down high level would be the next thing to cover.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on land combat?
I think it's been fun.
Yeah.
It's not gone well for me, but I do think it's been fun.
It went well against the 1st Libyan Division.
Yes. It's actually not gone that badly overall.
You made a good dent in them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's enough stuff there in combat, like the steps and the decisions you make, that it doesn't at all feel prescribed, I guess, by... It feels like while logistics is important, if you play it well, you can sort of counteract that a little bit with the like forward and back on the artillery guns.
Yes.
Who you're firing your barrages at does mean that potentially a smaller force that's well utilized can beat a bigger force, that kind of thing.
I mean, the big thing that stands out for me in that is when I think it was the 2nd Libyan Division, managed to pin down all of your infantry with guns, or
Yes.
pin down 2 out of 3, pinned them down in the barrage phase, which meant that your infantry were no longer sufficient to satisfy the combined arms rule, which means your armor, your tanks, are completely ineffective because they don't have enough infantry garrisoning the movement.
To support the tanks. So, yeah, they just become,
Completely inane.
I mean, just completely, useless.
So if I've got a smaller group that can barrage your infantry, keep them pinned, then I stop the advance of armor. It means all of a sudden my smaller unit is fighting against somebody who can't really fight back.
Yeah. Certainly it means you can delay a bigger unit until other stuff arrives.
Yes, it gives you a perfect opportunity to wait for reinforcements, maybe even pick off a little bit of it on your own. So yeah, I agree that you can make tactical decisions that really shift the game. I mean, I'm probably going to be focusing on infantry in barrages from now on, if there's armor, because it shuts down your armor completely.
Yeah, it seems the way to go with the sort of mixed forces. How are you finding it from your perspective, I guess? Any additional?
Well, the biggest thing for me, the biggest sort of concern that I've got is how scary the consumption rate of ammo is, because barrages using 4 ammo points
Yes,
it's a lot, and that's per barrage, that's per blast, per tow. So that's a scary amount of ammo to be used on essentially what is the prelude to close assault, because there's also a chance, which my barrage went off successfully with the 2nd Libyan Division. It shouldn't have. The numbers were not in my favour.
No, I think you did, real well there.
I think I had something like 3 or 4 results that could have got me that out of, 30 odd?
36,
so, yeah. So I was very unlikely in what I rolled. So when it comes to use of ammunition, if I was to, blow all that and it came up, I was going to say snake eyes, but in this game, snake eyes is the best roll you can have for some reason. So if it came up all 6s, then I would have been absolutely boned, because then I've used up almost all of my ammo, and it's for nothing.
Effect, yeah.
And then it comes to the close assault, and if you've got a bigger force, I'll get absolutely thrashed. So the amount of ammo being used really does scare me. I'm worried I've not got enough ammo going on, which goes back to logistics.
That's also compounded by another element, I think. I don't know if you agree with me, but I kind of get the impression from what we've played so far that unless there's a huge mismatch, combat's not going to be resolved in one clash.
Yes.
Like, units may be engaged to each other for 3 or 4 op stages before there's a definitive, one unit's destroyed, the other, overruns them. So it is sort of a war of attrition style.
Yeah.
So even if you're, just about to tip the scales and you 3 op stages in a row, hammered them, and then suddenly there's no ammo, it gives them a chance to, they're not pinned, they can leave, they can push into you because you can't fight back.
Yeah, it speaks to the verisimilitude of the war, in that you have these long engagements where these groups are locked in occasional skirmishes for weeks on end, and wait for supplies to garrison them so that they can then actually push forward, make the move that they need to. But it becomes the question: are the supplies ever coming? And if they're not, then that's it. You're up shit's creek without a paddle.
Yeah, and that feels like a large part of the game is, and I guess we move on to air, because I think air is probably a big part of that, or might be jumping the gun if you've got anything else, but keeping trucks from getting to the front line, whether that's bombing them, maybe sending you faster, smaller mobile units around the back to sort of get into enemy and try and pick those trucks off on the road.
Which is something I flirted with last op stage, the first one that we did, where I'd started to move units, and I'd spoke to you afterwards where I was talking about the fact I'd considered moving them past the Libyan border into Egypt,
Yeah.
and thought about maybe I just stick these men in, go for your convoy, which, because I know your convoys are bigger, would be a huge hit.
Yes.
But in the end, I thought, not really worth the risk for those men. But if I was to do that, I think, yeah, like you say, get a quick unit in, take them out, stop the supplies getting to them. It's a huge benefit. And yeah, air combat, which you mentioned there, definitely plays a big part in that.
Yeah. So I guess move on to that.
Yeah.
Thoughts for you from the start?
So all in all, I guess to counter my concern about ammunition in land combat, when it comes to air combat, I'm sitting pretty. I was really pleasantly surprised when we were doing the refitting at the end of last session, how little ammo it takes to refit your men compared to the vast quantities of ammo I've got.
Yeah, because it's a single... Bombs use a little more.
Bombs
But
use
for
more.
Fighters, it's just one ammo point for the whole squad.
Yeah.
So that's very light compared to an infantry unit using an ammo point to fire once.
Yes, when it comes to my fighters, if this isn't factoring in any of the bombers, and that's good because I do have ammo on the way, but if I wasn't to factor in any bombers, I could refit my fighters with ammo over and over for, I think, maybe a third of the game, based on just what I've got sitting from the start point at these airfields. So it's a huge gulf between that and the ground combat, but then... yeah, the bombers do feed into that a bit more, and I relied heavily on huge amounts of bombs from my bombers.
Yeah.
So I will have to really reinforce those numbers.
Each plane has a rating for ammo, which will be like, seems to be between 1 and 3 on the whole.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen more than 3.
And that's per plane.
Yes.
So if you've got like a squad of 15, you're suddenly like 45 ammo points, which is a lot when I think a heavy truck carries 8.
Yeah, it's 2, 4, and 8.
Yeah, so that's a lot of... that's like 5 heavy trucks to resupply that bombing run, which is 5 heavy trucks that aren't delivering water, aren't delivering fuel. Yeah.
And aren't delivering ammo elsewhere.
Yes.
Because, again, ammo is so necessary in a war, would you believe it, that if you've committed it all to an airfield, yeah, fair enough, you might be able to drop some bombs somewhere, but, you know, they're not going to be the ones killing ground units. Because we found this out last time, you know, that the air support can only pin ground units, they can't kill them, which speaks to what it is. It was a misunderstanding I think I had in my head, where I saw them as almost a replacement for ground units, where you can do everything you can with the ground units, with air units. It's just another vertical to go down. But in reality, it's you know, it's land support. It's not land replacement. So... being able to see that difference, I think, will definitely change how I use them. The fact I know I can use them to pin you en masse means, you know, focus on the guys that are, you know, making a big approach. If I can pin them down, stop them from getting somewhere, and then move men in, just slow the approach, get my guys in behind you, flank you, keep you pinned down, I think that's a much better use than committing all of my bombs to try and kill a small group.
Yeah. I think I'm going to be mainly using them for strategic objectives, not in the off the game map sense, but like airfields, wells, store dumps.
Yes, supply dumps are...
occasionally maybe a truck convoy if it's like a big one.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that they're only going to be limited for bombing ground units if I have a unit that's engaged and they're almost a type of support, or I want to pin a bunch of units so I can't attack them like in the next movement phase. But they're never... I don't think I'm ever going to be bombing units without supporting a land unit objective.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think that's the way to go with it. I went a bit ham initially because I just saw them as another way to attack and kill units. So I thought I can get these guys off the map completely, massively reduce their toe strength, and then... that's my guys able to walk on past. And come to think of it, if that were the case, then the Axis air superiority in the confines of the game would be ridiculously broken. And I would be able to just mow through pretty much all of your forces on the front line and then just march my guys east. And I think the game would be over a lot quicker if that were the case.
Which I think works with... well, that's how... the Italians had air superiority in real life and it didn't
win the war.
I think another part is I think it's ridiculous, but very fitting for the game, that plane combat is resolved as individual plane-to-plane dogfights. It's like ludicrous because of the scale, but just very fitting because of the like focus on minutia.
Yeah, it's crazy that you have to. Yeah, you've got so much to keep track of. The fuel, everything individual for these planes, and then you have to figure out whether or not each individual plane picks off the other plane it's fighting.
Yeah, and I think the scramble mechanics are a really good thing because it means you've always got that thing in your head of like, is the area around this airfield, is the other player likely to target it?
Yeah, do you keep anyone back?
Can I keep them back and use them as almost a trap or a defensive measure? Or do I just put all of my planes on objectives and let your planes be like less opposed?
Well, you that's what you did in our first dogfight.
Yeah.
You had those guys that were stuck near, well, not stuck, that were stationed near Mercer Matru. So then when I dropped a bomb on the road right next to it, you scrambled them, got was it all of them that you got out that you wanted to?
Yeah.
So they all showed up, and you picked off a couple of my planes. You picked off my ace. Still devastated about that. Fuck you, Edward Baxter. And the scramble mechanic there. I mean, while it didn't stop me getting my bomb off, what it did do is mean, I lost a few planes. I lost my best pilot. Well, one of my 3 best pilots.
And also, if I hadn't flown my bombing mission, which I heavily invested close air support on,
Yes.
I could potentially have scrambled like close to 100 planes, which would have changed that. But then the risk is my bombers are unaccompanied, and if you've put something in scramble,
Then it just
then
stacks.
suddenly my bombers are sitting ducks, and then if you haven't done something near Mercer Matru, that's just a turn the planes aren't doing anything.
Well,
So-
the irony that we found was actually that the airfield that you bombed was actually the airfield where the guys came from that attacked Mercer
Yeah.
Matru. So, it does have these funny knock-on effects, and you only took out one of the sort of capacity levels of the airfield. But there was definitely a situation where those planes get back, and they can no longer be refitted because the airfield is just absolutely ruined. So that could have went very differently. If you took out more of those planes,
I
got
think
through my
the
screen.
max I could have, and it wasn't that unlikely, was 4 or 5 capacity off.
Yes.
Which out of 6 would have like crippled what is kind of seems to be your forward operating like airbase.
It's definitely one of them, yeah. I've got quite a few along that border, and that is one of the, as we've seen. I used it there for a big mission, and it paid off, paid dividends, and now I'm a little bit cautious of where to keep my planes. I might do some transfer missions going forward.
Yes.
Because a lot of my planes have got really good range, especially the bombers, so I'm not really certain I want to keep any bombers up close and personal with the risk that they're gone, because they are really my favourite aircraft. Love the fact I can just take away the road from you.
I think it works well with the pilot stuff we just mentioned there. I think that's a really fun variant rule that, like, good on them for including, because I think it does add to it with the tracking your pilots, and if they get, I think it's 5.
It is, yeah. Yeah, down 5 enemy
If they
craft.
Down 5 enemy craft, they go up in rank, and I guess for us playing, like you mentioned Edward Baxter, who's a 0 ranking pilot who shot someone down. So
Completely fictional as well.
yeah, now he's generating ace points or whatever we want to call them, and there's a guy with a name who's frustrated you. So I think that's fun, chance for some storytelling in there.
Yeah, and I've also got, that sort of bit of a grudge against the 3rd Coldstream Guards, which is why I bombed them.
Bombed the shit out of them.
Because they went for the 1st Libyan Division.
Yeah.
So it is already having that sort of emergent storytelling.
Character,
It feels like I'm a bit more invested than I would be if they were just the tiles on the map. Because when every single action is fraught over and documented so clearly, we can go back and look at it and go, who was it that did that again? Who was the guy that shot down my ace? Which unit was it that changed the tide of my whole plan in the northern part of the map?
Yeah.
And then if you can pinpoint who that is, it's like, right, I'm out to get them. I've got a grudge. And that's what I've really enjoyed about the game. And I was always thinking that might happen with the pilots. And I'm glad we had that immediately, that on that twist of fate, you took out my best pilot that was out there, and it's created this mythical figure of Edward Baxter.
And I think it will happen with units as well, where like
Definitely.
some guys who on paper shouldn't win a fight at all will maybe you get lucky 3 fights in a row, and then it's like, oh damn, these guys are going ham. Like, yeah, you get to build that up as well. So,
well, there was my garrison. I can't remember what the town's called now. The ones that you captured as prisoners.
yes, no, I can't remember.
I think it's an L, something. But you captured them as prisoner. El Sign, or maybe? Oh, I can't remember now. But you captured them immediately because I thought they had no ammunition. Turns out they would have had ammunition. But a bit of a mishap, but in the grand scheme of things, we're letting it play out because it's not going to change the tide of the war, and it helps drum in these mistakes as things to change in future. But you captured them, and now they can't reform that unit, but what they can do if they escape is return as replacement points. So it would be fun to keep track of them and think, right, these are the guys who got taken away as prisoners from the garrison, and then if that unit starts pulling anything off, it'll be like, oh, maybe it's these guys. These guys have got a bit of a hand in this. Maybe they're getting their revenge.
Bit of a grudge.
Yeah, so I'm loving stuff like that. I think that's my favourite part of the game. It's aside from Barrage, love Barrage. Aside from that, I think it is the storytelling aspect. We've played so much Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
So I think any sort of storytelling that we can find within a board game really just adds to it. Although this is quite different from Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, yeah.
Quite significantly. Also, I guess because we're playing this with the expectation that the winner of the full campaign for North Africa has to be bought dinner by the loser. And you don't have that in D&D.
No, you rarely get a dinner.
Yeah, it's also not in the rules for anyone wondering. The campaign for North Africa doesn't say anything about the loser having to buy dinner for the winner. That's a house rule.
We'll add that to the addendum we're planning to release once we've got a better idea of.
I think it should be the case. I think at the end of all this, someone needs a prize.
Yeah, I think if you've gone through all of that, someone deserves something.
If this is just for fun, what's the point? Because it's not fun, not all the time. I need to, temper myself.
Certainly, like, fun per minute or whatever thing you want to use, it's not. Like,
yeah, if you had to measure it by that metric, it's not. The spikes of happiness and joy in this game do not average out to it being a good game and a happy experience. We've said it before, it's Stockholm Syndrome. It's those little bursts of enjoyment in what is a really trudgy situation. It just feels like it's elation, but it's not. It's just normal feeling. It's normal emotion. So, that's a good little breakdown so far of I think all of the big segments of the game. There's other small stuff that we haven't really got to experience yet. You got construction. You mentioned patrols, bits that'll pop up as we go. Scouting, sort of like scout missions, planes,
patrols, and the scouting with planes.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Scouting for planes. They released that song "Elvis Isn't Dead."
I'll have to give it a listen.
Yeah. It's a scouting for girls is the.
Oh, okay.
That was the joke. Oh, sorry, it's Elvis Ain't Dead. I think not Elvis Isn't Dead.
That's not why I didn't get it. Don't worry.
Apologies, I went too formal. Sorry, it's ain't. It's ain't, which is a word that I don't know. Not really sat right with me. Ain't. Not really sure what it's a conjunction of.
It's no y'all.
It's no y'all. Oh, thank you for everyone, by the way, who sends in an email with y'all in. I absolutely love it. I think whoever puts in the most y'alls in the email by the end of this whole thing wins. They win.
What a challenge.
They win. You can't just put y'all and nothing else. It needs to be coherent.
I might start breaking that out in real life.
I might as well, I might get some y'alls out there. I need to find a way to get it quite comfortably in my vernacular, but I'll get there. Speaking of getting things comfortable, the game itself, we mentioned earlier on, we made some strides at the start to make the game more comfortable, to make it a little bit more digestible. And it ate into a lot of time. The first 13 or so episodes, we were mostly talking absolute shit because we were busy trying to figure out a way to play the game. And I think panicking for the most part that we'd started doing this and maybe couldn't even do it. But we made some real good progress at the very start. The setup for the maps, we've talked about it before, but having these picture frames which are backed with metal ferromagnetic material, so now we can magnetize all of the game pieces, stick them on. It means at the end of the day, we just stack these boards up and we don't have to worry about the hours of setup it was taken beforehand.
Yeah, which I think is essential unless you've got if you're lucky enough to have a 10 foot by 3 foot space in your house, you can just dedicate to it the game.
Yeah, if you've got that much void room in your home, you're sitting pretty. You've got a comfortable life, I can tell you that, because I don't have that kind of void room where I live. So that was a big one. And the spreadsheets is another. We've made some real strides with organisation of the actual game tracking.
Yeah, getting formulas in for my stuff, and you've sort of got like a template system, don't you?
Yeah. So mine is I've got an individual tab for every single op stage.
Yeah.
So every unit has their own spreadsheet. Every sort of division or garrison, battalion. They have their own spreadsheet, and I'll create a new tab for every single op stage, which has been really helpful. It's been the case that I've got a good breakdown as to what has changed every single op stage, but the downside is I've had to make sort of little notes as to what has affected each value.
Yeah.
So whether or not ammo's been used for a barrage or close assault, etc., all these different things, whereas yours is a bit more tailored.
Yeah, mine's sort of rows in a table. Which I think there's probably value to both approaches. I think it's a what works for you situation rather than a there being one like correct way, as it were.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely the case that I think if I was to go back and do it again, I'd probably do it more like you have. Yeah. I think that's maybe a more sensible way to do it. So I'll have to keep my eye on how that works by the end of the scenario. Maybe rejig it, especially for the formulas, because at the moment you've got the means to implement those formulas quite comfortably. Yeah. I don't really have that.
Yeah, that is a big help for a lot of the stuff where it's just like a fixed thing happens, like store expenditure or water, or basically any of the stuff where there's no thinking, it's just bookkeeping.
Yes.
You can ideally just step over that, which is, I don't think this game was playable without computers.
I mean, in essence it was, but I mean, you'd have to...
In practicality, yeah.
Realistically, you would need the 10 players, which we don't have, and you would need it to be, I think, maybe a more regular playtime or a longer playtime. You'd be talking like a full weekend day every week or so, which we don't have the time for, and we don't have the friends for. Certainly not. We don't have enough stupid friends.
Lose.
Yeah. So we don't have those. So we have to make do, and it makes it a bit of a tougher thing to do. But overall, it's not too bad, especially when we broke it down by playing the scenario first. Which I guess, to get into that a bit, the scenario it's doing exactly what we hoped, because we've had so far like a dozen live situations where rules have been deep delved or disputed or outright misread through the play, and then being able to go back and ensure that they're properly comprehended means that when the full play is in action, we don't have that level of insecurity that would completely hamstring gameplay. If we're focused on understanding the rules, then we won't really be able to focus on winning the game, which sort of defeats the purpose of it being a competitive game. So these rule mistakes let us experiment a bit more and make some sort of tactical decisions that we wouldn't in the full game, because it risks then completely undermining years or decades of play. Whereas at the moment we can be a bit more free flow with that. We can get a bit more experimental and know what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's really important because, with the game being so long, like I mentioned sewer, but like in the real game, if I just left the bottom of the map empty, that's just like an encroaching problem forever until it's like a big diversion of stuff to undo it, rather than like a small amount of stuff at the start to like hold it in place.
Yes, yeah, and I think when it comes to the actual playthrough, I'm hoping I'll have a much more solid grip on the tactical side of things, because right now I'm still not confident that I have a solid strategy for anything. I think everything is very much upstage to upstage, and if you manage to ruin one of my plans in one upstage, I think I will just have to figure out a quick plan, and then redo it all the next upstage.
Yeah.
I'm not playing this like chess where I'm 10 steps ahead and have contingencies. I've got no idea what I'll do if my plan doesn't go the way I want it to.
Oh, yeah. But we've mentioned some rule issues. Shall we quickly go through some of the stuff we've run into?
Yeah, so we've had a few. So big one, the biggest one, I think, is the fact that there is a part of the game that doesn't exist.
Yes, the tactical shipping phase segment strength.
It's called different things in different parts of the rule books, but it's not real.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
That's another one of those, I think, rule holdovers. I think at one point they were going to have it, and then they moved everything into the truck convoy stage, and then didn't remove the segment from the rules.
Yeah.
Because I would be really interested to find out, I don't know if there's any way we ever could, but like, what does that like last sort of month before it gets sort of sent off to the printers look like almost? Is it like they knew a long time in advance, or is it like someone like the CEO or someone came in and was like, right, you guys have been fucking around for 2 years. I want this out next month. And then like a scramble to get it to what it needs to be, or...
Yeah, I don't understand how a segment of the game doesn't exist. Like, there has to be some major change during the development of the game.
I don't think so, but there is 10% of me is willing to... I think 90% sure it's just not a thing. 10% is like, there is a chance we've somehow made a mistake. But yeah, I mean, we've searched that's one another part of the making things easier that I think's been shockingly useful, is the searchable document.
Yes.
Because the first PDF we got was, I think, just a scan, so you couldn't
identify individual words and you couldn't search it, yeah. But then you've popped it through, you've made it a scanned version, so now we can actually identify stuff, which has been a godsend, because there's been lots of stuff we need to double check. Some units are misreferenced or omitted entirely. Several formulas are incorrect.
Yeah, I think 3 of your battalions we got on the...
2 of my divisions.
Divisions, yeah, were on the addenda asserted into the box.
Yes.
So that, I'm glad, that would have been a nightmare because I think they're both German, right?
No, one of them I think is actually Italian. I think one of them is one I get from the very start.
Oh, right, okay.
So that from go, if I didn't have that addenda that came with the game, not part of the game, but came with the game that we purchased, then I'd be at a loss, because I wouldn't know the characteristics of this entire division, so I wouldn't really know how to play them. So that would make for... We'd then have to figure out how it would...
have to, like, guesstimate.
Yeah, which feels like a bad idea for people who are playing the game for the first time. The in-game addenda itself, it notes that a large number of the units are missing the markings or detail on them, which they should have. So the headquarter stripe, which indicates it's a headquarter unit.
Which is a very important, like, visual shorthand.
Yeah, because if you don't have that, then you don't
You have
actually...
to look through everything.
You have to look through every piece in the box to find that one piece. And it will be the last one that you find.
Yes.
Because that's how the world works. So the core factor is that the rules, if you read them, are fine, but if you start playing the game, they don't actually work.
Yeah, which is a very frustrating headspace to be in.
And we've made our own mistakes as well,
yes.
Admittedly, where sometimes the rules have been there for us to look at, and we've misread them. Again, we've got a lot to keep track of, so I don't think it's too crazy that we've made the occasional misfire.
No, another reason the scenario is so important.
Yeah, we need it.
I mean, the biggest one, biggest fuck up, definitely guns being loaded and vehicles having fuel tanks, because that really changes the characteristic of basically everything in terms of supply.
Yes, by a long shot. So the fact that some units we thought did well, like I said, that garrison on the just past the border in Egypt, I thought that they didn't have any guns with ammo, and turns out they do, because they start with it. They start with enough ammo to fire once. Every unit does, and also the fact that we thought all of the trucks didn't have fuel. They have a fuel tank. It's full of fuel when the game begins. So we've also overcommitted fuel. I would say comfortably we've overcommitted fuel.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm going to be definitely at the end of the scenario going through and being like, how I think, like, working out the rate things are used.
Yes.
To help strategize for the full one, because, yeah, but that affected the combat we had between the 1st Libyan and the 3rd Coldstream Guard.
Yeah,
because the 3rd Coldstream Guard should probably realistically have been battered.
but I thought I only had enough ammunition for about half of the division to actually engage in that fight.
Yeah.
But if they all did, I would have been able to barrage and then also go in for a very big attack. So instead, it turned out differently, but I think it's another one where keeping that in is a learning experience. I'll always remember that fight now as being one that really I should have won, unless you got crazy lucky. And instead I didn't, and that's because of bad rule reading. So if we keep that in mind, I'll win the next engagement of that mismatch. Some small ones, you moved your train slightly out of order.
Yeah, I moved my guys via train in the movement phase, not the Commonwealth train. There's a specific stage for moving stuff.
Yes.
I think I just got excited to use the train.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, trains are cool.
Yeah. And I wanted to see those guys go so far.
Yeah, I did realize you were flicking the pieces across the board. That wasn't very cool. Launching them across.
Homebrew rule.
It's like tiddlywinks.
Yeah, the train is actually just the hand of God flicking a unit, and that's where the train landed.
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Wow, the war is scary.
Handily, they both landed in the symmetry.
Intact as well.
Yeah, stacked.
Yeah, they weren't. Well, they got big.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
It's a train that makes things big.
You're thinking of milkshakes.
Oh, yes. Milkshakes and bones, not trains and soldiers.
Yeah, so it's high protein Huel is what does that.
We can't pollute this episode with Huel chat.
Of course we can. This is a recap on everything that's come before, so
Yes,
Huel
I
has to
guess
be
it had
involved.
to be mentioned.
A couple of the ones, pinning from bombs, as we mentioned. You can't kill with bombs, you can pin with bombs. I wasted a lot of my bombs based on that, so that wasn't the smartest move, but hopefully it pays off when it comes to the movement and combat segment. I hope it does. I can probably decimate those guys now.
I think it was probably a waste of bombs, but it's like an overcommitment, not a huge detriment, I don't think. I guess we'll see if you have trouble resupplying the bombers and stuff, but it doesn't seem to have been too big a thing.
No, I think it's just more I've blown a lot of bombs that I probably shouldn't have. I could have maybe split that across 2 or 3 different targets and still had a comfortable result.
Pretty much the same, yeah.
Yeah, and on different groups as well. So I'll definitely be reassessing that one. As well as when it comes to air stuff. As I mentioned earlier, we had an email reminding me that a lot of my airfields are in villages or burhs. I don't need to worry about the water. There are wells there. So I can forget about water being a problem. Thankfully, that's happened during the refitting. So that will change how I look at refitting stuff. I won't be as nervous. And I think the biggest mistake that we've probably made so far is playing the game at all.
Yeah. It's all right at the minute. It's gone through this is the worst idea we've ever had to... it's not too bad.
Just one of the bad ideas that you've had.
Yeah. And concerns?
Yeah. Got a few of those. I think my concern is probably one of us dying before we finish the game. That's the big one. But what about yourself? Any specifics that stand out?
I had a few, but they've been sort of ironed out by the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
There's just the one left that I guess is the big elephant in the room because the game's never been play tested or finished, which is just, I think I've mentioned this before, but will things slide into unplayability? Like, does the breakdown rate overcome possible truck replacements, or will the shipping break down because you can't bring enough stuff in? Basically, I'm just worried about the long-term stuff in the game not working outright and us sort of soft locking ourselves at turn 100.
Yeah, does the attrition of the trucks in the end because of breakdown result in a huge disparity in the numbers because you only get so many that come in? So if you end up in a situation where you ran out of trucks, then you will find yourself in a position where you can't supply the men. You'll have to get them to sprint towards the nearest safe area, and then I guess you just wait out the end of the game.
Yeah.
Which would be a pretty anticlimactic way to play out the final 30 turns.
Yeah. So that is, the concerns, the unforeseen stuff from actually doing the full game. But scenario-wise, I don't have anything.
It reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen it, where in Minecraft, if you go far enough out in the game, like all the way to like the edge, and you just keep on going, the game starts to sort of break down a bit, and the chunk generation starts to fall apart.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what this game might have, where they might reach a certain point and the game can't actually account for everything. Yeah, it doesn't render anymore. The trucks are gone. They've ran out.
Yeah.
So I think, I agree, that's probably my big concern. I don't think there's anything else I'm worried about.
I don't know if it's trucks. I don't know if we're going to end up with no planes each.
Yeah, something could run out.
Like, is something limit? Because in theory, other than supplies for the Commonwealth, everything else in the game is limited.
Yes.
So it's if those,
Which also includes the means of moving those unlimited supplies.
Yes.
Your method of moving them around is limited. So I think that's positive. That's positive. We've been positive. The pod is positive.
Yeah, we've been keeping it positive.
We have, and it's been going well. We've had some good developments, especially since not just the last 100 days, but since episode 1. It's changed a lot, and it's been a good little journey we've had.
Yeah, a lot of it thanks to feedback from listeners and
definitely
you guys letting us know what you like, what you don't like, what works, that sort of thing.
Well,
so
that's it.
Thanks for helping guide us on that. But yeah.
Well, we came into it with this being, the accountability tool to make sure that we're putting this out there. Maybe a few people are interested, but for the most part, this is to make sure that we are putting the word out there that we're playing the game so that we can't really stop, because otherwise we've wasted our time and money on getting this thing set up.
Yes.
And then we're just in a hole, and we've wasted, at this point, months. So we can't really back down now, and there's already a fair few of you guys listening in, and we've added stuff like the email feedback, which, like you just said there, Andy, it's a fantastic way to get an idea of what people like. People seem to really enjoy the history segment, which you've really taken the reins on.
Yep,
and
I've enjoyed that.
I've enjoyed it. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. There's been, we've got a few bits that, some of the silly stuff is still definitely around, and I think that's just baked into who we are.
We sort of pushed a lot of it back into common ground. We sort of, that's a sort of valve.
Which is
for
healthy. We need that valve. We need to be able to talk absolute crap. But for the first, 13 episodes, it was just unadulterated
nonsense,
chaos, and it was tangential to the game to an extreme. Whereas now it's at least some of the silly stuff is related to the game, and you guys have helped steer us in that direction, because we were off the rails a little bit at the start. We needed that, and you guys have helped nudge us back over. You're like the railings in a bowling alley. At first I look at it and I go, "Oh, really? We need the rails up?" And then I'm like, "Yeah, but this way I can actually hit the pins." So thank you for letting me hit the pins. The history segment's been great. Graziani, Montgomery, Enigma, Long Range Desert Group. It's been a lot of fun getting to learn about that sort of stuff, because it's not the kind of thing I had any interest in before playing this game.
Neither did I, to be honest, but
even when I started,
enjoyed it, yeah.
Even when I started playing the game, I wasn't interested. I was like, yeah, the game will be interesting. Maybe I'll learn a bit through the game. I've learned a lot more through your history segments than I have the game. But the game also has provided a little... I'm falling in the trap that I did in the very first episode, saying the game all the time. I listened back to the first episode earlier today. I say the game a lot. So I've clearly brainwashed myself into doing that again.
But also, I based... What got me looking at the Long Range Desert Group was an email from you guys. So if you know of any interesting people or units or events, please fire them over. And, we've got 10 years of stuff to do, so we'll definitely do it.
Yeah, we'll do it. The same way we promised to read out every email, get through it all. We'll do the same when it comes to stuff like that. If you've got an idea of something that could be interesting, we'll hear you out on it. And some of you guys had mentioned the Long Range Desert Group. We took that on board, and I thoroughly enjoyed learning about it. So thanks to you guys, and thanks to Andy for putting that together. And looking forward to the future, we're going to continue to try and make it a little bit more interactive, in the sense that we're going to be putting more stuff out there that could be used to understand how we're playing the game. So when we finish the scenario, the game plan is we'll have, at that point, standardized sheets where we can keep track of everything, that we're not going to be changing the format constantly. So then we can update the sheets and put them out there on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, however often, and then let people actually follow the game through the way we do, which means you can also try playing it yourself if you want. I wouldn't recommend it.
That is what we'd also like to, I guess if we're pushing through this path, others have before, obviously, but we would like to make it easier for anyone mad enough to try and have a go at this who follows us. So we will, once we're comfortable with our addenda, once we think the sheets work and we find a good framework, we'll definitely look forward to sharing that with you guys.
Will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. It'll be a hell of a camel to break, and we're sick of camels, not knowing what they do. But we think that, maybe there's someone else out there that could give this a go at some point. Maybe someone else is stupid.
We'll be like the 4-minute mile. No one had ever done it. They didn't think it was humanly possible. Then that guy did it, and like 5 people did it in the same year or something. So we'll be that guy for this game.
We'll be the inspiration of a generation. I like that. We'll be heroes. we are kind of like heroes. I like that.
Yeah. Further plans as well. We've got some sort of very ambitious digital plans to make tools and stuff to help us out.
Yes.
And on the other end, some incredibly lo-fi ones. Like, I'm going to get a stick and basically make a ruler that's specifically sized for the hexes.
So we can do
so we
travel
can
a
work
bit
out
easier.
routes easier, yeah. So both ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah, some of it's very unimpressive, but hey, putting the map in picture frames on paper, it sounds a little bit low tech, but God, it's a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Same goes for stuff within the podcast. Guests have been a lot of fun. We've had 2 so far. 2 episodes with guests.
Echoes of War episode 3 gave us some of that historic background when neither of us literally knew anything.
Yeah, those guys were great as well. Yeah. And if they were on now, it would have been a very different story. We would have actually been able to, I think, engage with it a bit more. Instead, we were just sort of sat in awe and asking vaguely related questions. And, bless, they took their time to come on here, and we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
So Echoes of War, by the way, great channel. It's basically the history segment, but that's their whole podcast. And they
better researched.
Yeah, they know what they're talking about. They haven't just found out about it. So check them out. I definitely recommend it. And episode 25, of course, we had Cam Sandwich. Great guy. Cam was a lot of fun. Big board game fanatic. Got a YouTube channel that breaks down the most weird and wonderful when it comes to board
really
games.
Fun channel.
And had a great time waxing philosophical about the game with him.
And I think it was we saw one of his videos from when we were thinking about doing this, but then fans got in touch about him.
Loads of people.
If you're listening and you think of anyone else who you listen to who might be interested in talking to us about the game, or good, again, fire them in.
Yeah, point us their direction. We'll drill in. We'll pester them. We'll see if they want to get involved in this dirty business. So that's also on the horizon. We'll scope out anybody who might be able to shed a little bit of insight on what we're doing, or maybe someone we just want to point at this and go, "Oh, look what we're doing. It's silly," and they can go, "This is silly. It's very silly. It's what we're doing to you guys, and you're still listening. So what does that say about you?" And I suppose the last point is just a thank you to everyone who is listening, whether it's people who know us personally and our friends who we've managed to corral into listening to this. Apologies to all of you. I know you're listening. And to everybody on the other side of the world and all the way in between. You've made this experience so far a little less torturous. Definitely a lot more entertaining.
A lot less torturous.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff you guys have come out with, the poncho debacle, that's been interesting. We've had some real corker communications come through, and it's interesting that it's sparked so much intrigue and so many weird and wonderful characters out there clearly engaged with it. So thanks for taking the time to listen to this, and hopefully you stick around for the long haul, because you got to find out how it ends.
You're on this ride too now.
Yeah, this is actually we're your accountability tool. Pay your Spotify subscription. Make sure you've got us subscribed on YouTube. That's right. Accountability tool is us.
Yeah, well, keeping each other honest.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, it's been it's crazy. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, we're loving it so far. The game sometimes, the podcast always, though.
Yes.
So that's more or less all we have to say for this very first segment of War Room. Sorry, there's no common ground for anyone who was hoping for unadulterated stupidity, but it'll be back in its It's prime form next week, as will all of the other bits and pieces, some
We'll be
history,
back
some
to
mail.
Regularly scheduled programming. But we're going to do the sort of more focused just on the game check-ins.
Yes, at any sort of big
Space
milestone.
them out at various milestones to...
I think maybe I one up for the end of the full turn.
Yeah, and then probably the scenario.
Yeah, definitely the end of the scenario. So, you guys, you keep doing what you're doing. Fuck the trucks, and we'll handle the dirty work down here at the table. And we need to get out this bondage gear as well.
Yeah, that's going to take half an hour to extract ourselves from these swings.
Yeah, I'm really sweaty in this as well.
Oh, get out.
I can't, I'm trying to. It's difficult. Well, Andy, say the bit.
Stay subtle, humble, and brave, guys.
There
Thanks
we
for
go.
listening.
Fuck the trucks, and I'll see you out there in the sweaty, latex-bound deserts of my mind. Nighty-night.